So we've still got some people joining us, but welcome everyone. We're so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to have this little festive occasion and a writing workshop to kick off animal rights. We are so excited about this book, and we're eager to jumpstart a summer of writing with all of you. So what we're going to do today is John and I are each going to do a couple of brief readings from the book, as well as one from one of our favorite books that is exemplary of all good things about writing for animals, and we're going to do some writing and do a giveaway. And if you have any questions, we'll have a little bit of time for that as well at the end of the hour. So I think I'll just let John get started with
Yeah,
giving you a taste of the book.
yes. And feel free if questions come up, just put them in the chat. We will make sure we get to them in the chat. I don't think this is going to go all hour, so we'll definitely have time for Q&A. And also, I hope you've all brought something to write with, or your computer or whatever, because we are going to do some writing prompts. Okay, so about animal rights. So many of you know that several years ago, I forget how many years ago, we put together a book called Writing for Animals, and it was also the name of a class we began teaching. And this is a collection of essays by a number of really inspiring authors, and it's really a book designed to educate but also inspire. And what we realized as we were teaching the class off and on over the past few years is writing prompts. We needed, that there was a need for writing prompts, and that was and more, in fact, not just writing prompts, but more of a guidebook, something for the writer to kind of help them along on their journey. And so animal rights came out of that. It's a slim book. It is really it's a handbook in the sense that there's I'd say about 100 writing prompts, introduction, an overview of craft, uh, um, pronouns, which is something we talk a lot about, and a little bit about publishing and how challenging that can be, particularly if you're writing for animals on their behalf, some species more than others. So that was the genesis of the book, and we're thrilled to have it out there because this is we've been on this journey for many years, and I'm so glad to see all of you on similar journeys. And because this is what inspires me, but it's also can be a very difficult journey, particularly when it comes to the publication side of things. So that's why we wanted a book that was just that, if you hit a dry spell, or if you just got a little worn out, or you we're just out of ideas, that there's prompts in there to kind of jumpstart your creative juices, or just remind you of why what we're doing, what we're all collectively doing, is so important for the planet, for our fellow creatures. So without further ado, I'm just going to read the first few pages to give you an overview of the book and why it came to be. So it's titled "Why Write for Animals?" Why are you writing for animals? Perhaps it is to portray an animal in your life, or perhaps it is to shine a light on a species that is overlooked, or worse, villainized. Perhaps you write to explore animals you've never seen in person, or perhaps you simply have a passion for sharing your love of animals. Knowing why you are writing for animals is as important as the writing itself, because the why is what will propel you on your journey and keep you going along the way. The life of a writer can be challenging in the best of times, but writing for animals can be doubly so, particularly if you're writing to protect or save a species that society cares little about. Our journey began more than a decade ago when we came to realize as writers how seldom animals are portrayed accurately, wisely, or compassionately in literature, and that even most writers who love animals continue to eat, wear, and use them. Animals are sentient beings who deserve freedom and protection, yet while activists know this and science is beginning to learn how smart and emotional animals are, our literature still has a very long way to go. Although seeing overt animal abuse in fiction isn't necessarily common, such actions as eating or wearing animals, going to zoos or circuses, or the horse races are very common in literature and aren't really considered abusive at all, despite the necessary violence that is done to animals in these situations. As both vegans and writers, we want to create a better world for animals. Now, being vegan is the easy part, but as writers, we know we can do more. If we want to see a better future for all living creatures, we need to start by imagining it. And what better place to do than in stories? What's often missing in literature is the idea of animals as individuals, as characters in their own right. All too often, animals are, I have an animal behind me at the moment,
Shelby.
Shelby. Uh, all, all too often, animals are deployed as props. For example, a swimmer in the ocean may encounter a shark simply as a means of heightening tension, despite the fact that a swimmer is far more likely to die by drowning than by shark attack. These long accepted tropes are overdue to be questioned and challenged. Writers have the power to educate readers while simultaneously entertaining them. Another reason we believe in creative writing about animals is that fiction reaches us in places facts cannot. Readers who don't want to learn about endangered species or who may feel too depressed or overwhelmed by reading a whole book on the topic may be totally open to reading a thriller or a romance or a literary novel in which an endangered species is featured. Best of all, they'll be engaged in a story while learning something new and perhaps even opening their minds and hearts to a species they hadn't considered before. Advocating for animals is more important than ever, not just because of climate change, but because of the unsustainability of human population growth, which increases the toll on animals as well as the planet. Animals everywhere are losing their habitat due to increased demands for agriculture as well as housing and development. And when it comes to animal rights, the animals cannot have too many supporters. You may be a vegan activist, or you may be an omnivorous writer who wants to write about animals in your creative work. Animal rights is for all advocates and for all writers. The aim of this book is to encourage you to explore your relationship with animals, both on and off the page, and to incorporate as much compassion as possible into your writing, which will enhance your creativity as well as help create a better world for animals. This book is about writing for animals rather than merely writing about them. It's about asking what we as humans can do for animals rather than what they can do for us. It's about listening to them and to our hearts. Most of all, it's about putting pen to paper. And with that, I think we should put some pens to paper
Our fingertips to key.
or fingertips to
Gives you
keys.
keyboards. Yeah, so here's the first prompt for us. This one is from the book. These are all from the book. And this first one is to write a conversation. And this is one of the dialogue exercises that we love. You know, put it in dialogue if you like. Write a conversation between you and your companion animal. And if you don't have a companion animal, think of an animal in your neighborhood, a bird, squirrel, raccoon, pigeon, anyone that you might see or encounter on a daily basis. What have you always wanted to say to this animal? And what would they say in reply? So we'll give you a few minutes to work on that. We're going to mute ourselves. You might see Shelby, but at least you won't have to hear her. She's on the prowl. We'll give you at least 5 minutes to tackle this one. Again, write a conversation between you and your companion animal or another animal you see regularly. What have you always wanted to say to this animal? And what do they say in reply? Okay, everyone, take a moment or so to sort of wrap up what you're working on. I can tell you that we took our two felines into the vet this morning for their annual checkup. And so our imagined conversation between ourselves and them was quite spirited. They're not happy. They had to get a vaccine. So anyway, yeah, this can go a lot of different ways. It's super fun. And again, it's not only to get a sense of, writing dialogue and thinking about animals, not to be to anthropomorphize, but to think of us all as equals, because they don't converse with us the way we converse with one another, but that doesn't mean they don't converse amongst themselves, and it doesn't mean they don't communicate with us. So again, it's a dialogue exercise. It's not only about that, but it's about thinking about another animal and putting yourself in their shoes or paws, or talons, or whatever it may be. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Next, what I would love to do is to do a reading, more of a craft reading. I'm going to read an excerpt from a novel. And this is the novel I'm going to read from. It's called Love and Ordinary Creatures. This is a novel that we published at Ashland Creek Press about 10 years ago. It's by Gwen Hyman Rubio, who's a best-selling author. And the reason I'm going to share this today is that it's one of the few extraordinary and successful books written from the point of view of an animal. And those are really, really hard to do, as a lot of you may know from trying to write from the point of view of an animal, from trying to read books from the point of view of an animal. It's very, very hard to do justice to non-humans this way in literature. And it's so, so important to do it well, just to honor all these animals. And we think this one is a good example of that. And also, just a couple of comments before I read. What I'm going to do is read an excerpt from the beginning of the book, a few paragraphs. And if we could sort of read as writers a little bit, think about some of the things she's doing in these opening pages. The book is about a sulfur-crested cockatoo, and his name is Caruso. He is the narrator of this entire novel, which is pretty extraordinary. And in order to do that well, Gwen Hyman Rubio really had to do her research. She had to learn everything there is to learn about cockatoos. She had to create a character, from that knowledge. But he's not just a bird. He is Caruso. He's an individual. Just as no two humans are alike, no two cockatoos are alike. They have distinct personalities. And this bird has an incredible personality. He is wily, he's cunning, he's hilarious, he's deceptive. He can be, pretty cheeky. And he goes through a full character arc by the end of the novel, quite an extraordinary character arc, because there's something in his world that he wants. And it's not his natural world, that's the other thing, but there's something in his world that he wants, and he'll do anything to get it, he decides. That's the kind of bird he is. So I'm going to read a little bit from the beginning of this novel. And once again, this is Love and Ordinary Creatures by Gwen Hyman Rubio. When Caruso opens his dark eyes wide, he can will himself above the world. His pupils dilate as he soars back in time, seeing and remembering the Murray River, its muddy dark waters, thick as blood, snaking through the casuarina trees, the sun squatting like a giant monolith on their dangling reed-like branches. He feels the heat, a volcanic blast of white, then senses the flurry of wings and the air currents above, below, and around him. With loud, raucous cries, the undulating wave of white breaks over the leafless trees. Yes, Caruso can remember these things, these primordial memories of his life before it changed. The past disappears and the future becomes irrelevant the instant he focuses on Clarissa, lying white and still in the sunroom in front of him. His pupils dilate and contract, pinning with pleasure, while he stares at her round pink shoulder, free of the white silk robe. Clarissa. If she doesn't wake up soon, they'll run out of time. She turns her head slightly. Her red hair parts to expose her white swan neck. On it, a few inches down from her left ear, is a mole, small and black as a papaya seed. The wooden blinds are open. A breeze wafts in from Silver Lake Harbor. Shafts of sunlight pass through the long, wide windows. Outside is the low thrum of a fishing boat as it slices through the water. Clarissa! He tries again, his voice more insistent. She promised to take him to the beach. He leans forward on his perch, lengthens his white neck, whiter than hers, and peers longingly through the bars of his home, catty-cornered from where she lies. He can stand it no more. How long has she been napping? Hours, it seems, and he's been patient thus far. If he dared, he would undo the snap hook and lock, sneak through the cage door, and nest in her hair. If he dared, he would escape, not to the open sky, but to her open palms. If he dared, if he dared, if he dared. But then, if he dared, she would know that he is smarter than all the authorities of books on citizens suggest he is. That he is smarter than the porpoise, the whale, the gorilla, and Ruthie, the 4-year-old girl who lives next door. Clarissa, he says, a little louder. He could pass the time rappelling up and down the chain attached from the top of his cage. Such ridiculous repetition, like a lazy mountain climber conquering the same slope again and again. Nor does he desire to jangle the yellow rattle she gave him last year. He is not her child. Impatient, he maneuvers himself to the side of his cage and begins to clink his way down the bars in an effort to rouse her. He could release a siren-like shriek, so shrill it would send her lurching upward, wildly blinking her sapphire blue eyes, but he must control himself, or else the thing he most fears could happen. He could lose her. He lowers his eyes and looks inward. Fear. There's danger all around. Prey he is, and has been for more than 26 million years. In the bush of Victoria, he is constantly aware of predators lurking. He is vigilant when he forages for wheat seeds, when he plunders sweet papayas in groves that go on for miles. Damned as pests, he and his flock have been shot at and poisoned through the centuries. If not vigilant, he can be swallowed by a carpet snake, camouflaged in a she oak or hidden by a branch of eucalyptus trees. If not careful, he can be seized by a saltwater crocodile, by a nighthawk, by a feral cat. He is a wild creature. Descending from the dinosaur, he has existed forever. Instinct and learning have taught him how to search for food, entice a mate, and defend his nest. He was born in a time before time, in an everlasting spiritual cycle when life was dreamed and formed. He was created in the distant past, in the present, and in the future, in the everywhen, at which the Aboriginal people call the dream time. Curling his toes around the solid bars, Caruso performs a lively shimmy, shaking the cage even more. All he wants is to be paroled from these 4 walls, this prison, this hole in a tree, this safe haven, in order to be near her. Okay, well, before we get on to our next prompt, which I think will be really fun, just a few words of appreciation. That's Shelby. I hope you can't hear that as much as we can. She's doing exactly what Caruso was doing in that scene, by the way, trying to get our attention by rattling something in the kitchen. There's so many things to appreciate about this scene, but one thing that I think she does really well is kind of, she honors all things cockatoo by getting us into Caruso and who he is, but also she mentions in small ways the things that humans don't get about cockatoos, the things in his cage that he has no interest in because he's not a little baby who's going to play with a rattle. He's so smart. He doesn't need these toys. But I think for so many of us humans, we don't know what to do with animals if we don't know enough about them. And his companion with whom he's in love, and that's basically the whole point of the story, is that cockatoos bond. They find mates and they bond to them, and poor Caruso only has this human and he's madly in love with her, and she meets another human, and then that's when things he gets really jealous, and it's very sweet, but she's the only person he has to bond to, and so hence this story. So anyway, so that's a little introduction to Love and Ordinary Creatures, and next we're going to offer you a writing prompt that has to do with genre. And it's a 3-part prompt, and we'll give you a few minutes to work on each one. And let's begin with the setting, which is to write about a herd of cows in a field. And first, write about this herd of cows as a mystery. So that's the genre we're going for, a herd of cows as a mystery. And we'll give you a few minutes to work on that. Okay, everyone, I'm going to give you the next genre when you are ready. So the next part of this is to write about a herd of cows in a field, but this time write about it as a romance. And I will give you a few minutes to do that and have fun with it. It could be like, the cheesiest romance you've ever read, or it could be like a great classic romance. But have fun with it most of all. Okay, when you have a moment, wrap up that little mystery. Sorry, romance, thank you. Um, And then the last part of this prompt is to write about a herd of cows in a field. This time, write a poem. And we'll give you a few minutes to work on that, and then we'll be back. Also, John put a little tidbit in the chat just for those of you who are curious.
Okay, how was that? Is it fun switching genres like that? If only it were that easy in real life. Um, I hope it kind of got you thinking about genres that might be new for you um, or just challenging to try for the first time because I feel um, I read all types of books, all genres, and I feel like genres are just underutilized by animal advocates often because um, it's often a great medium or device to get a message across. Um, while you're generally playing by the rules of the genre you're writing within, a mystery or say a romance or a thriller. And we Midge and I tackled that with we wrote a mystery, um, but we really the mystery called Devil's Island. But the real goal was to talk about the Tasmanian Devil, which was really what motivated us to write the book. And so we thought, well, why not envelope this message in a mystery, a plain out murder mystery. And we think it worked, but and what was nice about it is we did a lot of readings and people said, I had no idea that the devils were going through this. They were suffering from a disease. They are suffering from a disease. It opened a lot of minds to this species that, that we had very little knowledge of ourselves until we discovered them for the first time. So so in terms of maybe you have one way you want to write, but if you're open to different genres, I think it could be really freeing in a lot of ways, because you can have a lot of fun too, playing within different genre. I would love to tackle a romance at some point, or we're actually talking about a cozy at some point too, because it's fun. It's right. We're writers, and I think what's interesting is when you devote your life to you saying, I want to advocate for animals. It doesn't matter what genre you're writing. You can do it across any genre, whatever feels right for that particular animal, for that particular story you want to tell. So anyway, I hope that got you thinking. I hope it inspired you a little bit. It inspires me. And so now we're going to have a very brief quiz, and we're going to give away a copy of Animal Rights, a print copy if you're in the US. If you're international, it will be a PDF. And so, as you know, there's in the book we have a long list, and it is a list of names or descriptions for groups of animals. For example, like a murder of crows, and you can argue back and forth of whether it makes sense to use these terms, because you can see I've argued back and forth in my head of why this makes sense or doesn't make sense, but it's kind of interesting to see the full list. And so and to be aware of how these words developed and why they developed. There's histories behind these words. But the quiz is, what is a group of cheetahs called? And the first one to answer correctly in the chat will get a book. So chime away. There's no wrong answers. I honestly
Try not to Google it.
Yeah, don't Google. Or Chat GPT it. Hey, okay, Kristen got it. Well, that was
Coalition. Did you have to Google that, or did you get it? Because I'll confess, I had to look that up.
Yeah.
For when we did these lists, we have lists of groups of animals and animal babies as well. And we did have to do our research. Congratulations. That's great. Chris got it.
Coalition.
You read about it in Nat Geo. Excellent. Oh, I love that you knew that. And I didn't know, kind of apropos of what John was saying about a murder of crows, a pair of crows is known as a manslaughter, which is just so cool to me. A little creepy and weird, but it's awesome. And when a friend told me that, I thought she was joking, like that she was making a play on words, but no, it's a thing. So yeah, so it's great. And actually, I did read about cheetahs as I put this question together, as we were talking about, which question can we do? And we wanted something that was a little challenging, but, not completely impossible. And yeah, and Kristen might be writing this right now, groups of animal names. Yeah, kind of whimsical. A coalition of cheetahs, they call them a coalition because it is a sort of alliance among the male cheetahs. So when the cubs grow up, the females go off. When they mature, they become independent and they raise their own families. But the males kind of band together in a coalition, and they stay together to hunt more effectively, to defend their territory, and to take care of each other. So that's why it's called that, or one of the reasons anyway. A Conspiracy of Ravens. Yes, it is so fun to learn this stuff. It really is. And, it's part of what makes writing for animals fun, is because part of the job of, when you want to do it well, is to do all the research. And it's really fascinating.
And you can also, these words, you can subvert them too. And that's a lot of what we talk about when you write for animals. You can, we talk a lot about pronouns, it versus he or she or they. Really powerful if you know how to use them correctly, or, based on what human character you're writing. So words are really powerful, and we're at an interesting time historically too. I think the way people are really awakening to animals in a way that they have not. Certainly, I wasn't raised to be aware of animals. I think the way the society is awakening to them now, and just the power of naming. We talk. It's you if an animal is named, like I'm thinking of the owl in Central Park. What was his name? Oh gosh, it's another quiz. Yes, Flacco. Yes. So once an animal receives a name, not by his or her choosing, by a human, it's fascinating to see what happens after that and how media pick up on it. And um, so that, with as writers, when you study language and words and how people talk about animals, one person says it, another person says he, you've got conflict right there. There's so much conflict that we are living among, and it's not pleasant conflict, but it's real. And it's something that we as writers have a lot of power at our disposal by leveraging these words and subverting them at times. So, okay. So I think you have another writing.
We have another writing
Okay.
prompt, one final writing prompt, and then if we have time, we'll have a little chat, which would be lovely. But one final writing prompt for you. If you could live your life, live a life, another life, as a non-human animal, which animal would you choose and why? So the prompt is to write about a day in your life as this animal. And we'll give you a few minutes to work on that. And thank you for your comments, by the way. It's been lovely to see them. I will repeat it. There was a cat disturbance for one of our fellow writers. If you could live a life as a non-human animal, which animal would you choose and why? And write about a day in your life as this animal. Okay, take a moment to wrap up. And of course, we hope if you didn't get enough writing time with us that you will continue to work on these later and, like replace the genre prompt with another scene, another animal, write about a conversation between you and, myriad other animals that you can come up with. And depending on the day, whatever non-human animal you chose, maybe you would choose another one on another day. And John was just saying he's very curious to hear what you all chose. For me, I looked across at my house cats sleeping in the sun. They're just passed out on a window seat in a patch of sun, and that's what I want to be in my next life. So that's my answer. Anyone else want to chime in? Dolphins. Can I tell you a dolphin story? Oh, giant Pacific octopus. But a dolphin story, just real quick. John was mentioning, that animals get names not of their choosing, and I had to mention that one researcher who wrote a book. It's on Ecolit Books. I did a review of it. It's called Why Animals Talk by Arik Kirschenbaum. Why Animals Talk. And in this book, he notes that of all the sounds that dolphins make, they all have their own unique names, and they're the only animal that we know of currently that name themselves. So they come up with their own names for themselves, which is extraordinary. Because again, it's that we know so far. Who knows? We just don't, that's the whole problem about writing a book of animals, why animals talk when we can't understand them completely, but it's a very interesting book in terms of how they communicate. Enrique is okay. Well, it's an amazing book, and the signature whistles, exactly. That was, I think, the favorite thing about that book was learning that the dolphins, have names. Blue jay. What else? Opossums.
Yeah, I have Steller's jay, which we have a
Yeah.
real lot of those jays here.
Oh, what is this strange animal Caitlin's talking about? A
A
blue
duker?
duker,
Huh.
an
Wow.
antelope, koala.
Wow. Boy, they make some noises. Let me tell you.
An antelope. Okay.
House,
Oh, that
house,
sounds like a cool animal.
wow.
Yeah, house cat, of
House cat.
course. Yeah, and it has to be like one of these house cats, right? Because I do a lot of work with local cat rescues, and you don't want to be just any cat. It's a tough existence for a lot of animals, and that's what I think some of the interesting ways you can explore these is by putting yourself in the life of one of these animals and kind of seeing what it would be like. Yeah, thank you for fostering kittens. Oh my gosh, that's tough work. Oh my gosh, look at that. Laura's kitten. Oh, it's beautiful.
90 species of antelope. And so this, as a writer, I don't know. I mean, you write about whatever animal inspires you, whatever man, I mean, and there's really no limit. It was hard for me to pick one. But I always think, gosh, how many novels have been written about antelope? Any of those species that I'm not, I'm sure there's one or two out there, but I'm not aware of them. And I think, God, if every species got a novel or a nonfiction book or something, that would be so huge. And I just think there's just so much opportunity and for us as writers now. And actually, I think the reading public is more open to this than ever before, both in nonfiction and fiction. So it's a really good time for us. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I feel like historically people are more open to reading about animals and species that they're not familiar with. They're open to learning more things. So it's exciting. I'm always amazed by how many species of just birds there are that I can't keep track of. And every bird deserves a novel or two. So anyway, is there any final thoughts, questions, comments? Um, I'm grateful for you all joining us and inspired that everyone is out there writing for animals because we're all in it together. We're all fighting the good fight.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe you could tell us where we can find your book.
Oh, absolutely. Animal Rights is available at ashlandcreekpress.com, and it's also at ecolitbooks.com.
Or you can get it on Amazon.
And you can get it on Amazon.
Bookshop.org.
Bookshop.org, and any bookstore should be able to order it if you go in with the title and our names. And the ISBN helps a lot if you want to jot that down and go into your local bookstore.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
thank you. And Julie, Ashland Creek Press is the publishing arm, and Ecolit Books is a site that we put together a number of years ago to review other books any book that it's called Ecolit. And one thing that we've been trying to do for a decade is to connect environmentalism to animal rights. Because there's been a divide, and it always has bothered me to see novels about that glorify hunting and fishing and other extractive, violent activities as environmental books. And maybe historically they were once. I'm not going to dismiss that they absolutely were. But now in this current age, we really want to really champion and point to a lot of novels, nonfiction books, books of poetry that are more progressive. And so Ecolit was founded to do that, and it has a store. And so we do sell the Ashton Creek books through the store. But check out Ecolit Books, and that's actually the newsletter we generally use as well. So if you want, we'll post this recording. I think we'll probably post it on Ecolit Books. And then there's a newsletter. You can stay up to date through there. And I like it because, I can just get on there, and if I read a really moving book, I can review it. And there's some really good books in there that we've reviewed. It's not just myself and Midge. We have a number of contributors.
And we review books in all genres, fiction, nonfiction, animals, the environment, plants.
And we also, if for writers, we've put together a list of journals, publishers. There's the academic presses, because, for a lot of what we write, we might be going to small presses. So there's academic presses, there's small presses. And then there's a lot of journals for short stories and poems and essays, you name it. So, that's where we started it out of self-interest, quite honestly. And now it's grown and people contribute. And so check it out. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your wonderful comments and for joining us today. We do hope to put together another Writing for Animals course, like a live Zoom course. It's always available to do a self-paced version online, and we hope to do another one live via Zoom sometime this year. And I also wanted to mention that I'm doing a class with San Diego Writers Inc., and it's going to be via Zoom. It's called Writing Wild, and it'll be a 3-hour intense workshop on writing the wild world, the great wild world. So it'll have a lot of writing for animals stuff in there, and writing about nature as well. And that's on September 13th. Saturday, September 13th from 10 to 1 on Zoom. You can find that on, I think it's on our Ashland Creek Press website under classes and events, but also on my website, midgeraymond.com. And if you Google San Diego Writers Inc., INK, you'll be able to find it there. And that's in September. So anyone who's interested in doing more writing for animals and the planet, I'd love to see you there. And anything else before we go? We just want to thank you so much for being here, for doing what you do, for being animal advocates, and for writing, and for being part of our little world that we're creating, because you inspire us to keep everything going. This is why we do it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
Athena.
wonderful rest of your evening or morning, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us for far and wide. And we'll hope to see you again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.